how to implement all these steps of research, how to conclude and report writing. Okay. So now when the researcher wants to conduct a research, first of all, he has to be sure that whatever research he is going to conduct is within his capacity or potentials. That means he should have a sound knowledge of the subject in which he is doing the research. It is not topic, it is subject. So for law, he should have thorough understanding of at least minimum 3 subjects. The first one is jurisprudence. He should have thorough understanding with the principles of jurisprudence. The second is constitutional law, and the third is the subject from which he is going to choose the topic. If he cannot do this, then he is not fit for research. He has to, because research is such that whatever is your topic, whatever is the topic of the research, whatever is the problem, the title, the topic of the research, and whatever are the concepts or the aspects of research, he has to show how these concepts are relevant, coming from jurisprudence or constitution, and then how they have brought in a particular case law or in a particular statute, and then begin the research. This is the foundation of any research. Later on, whatever theory he has built up, then he has to show how this theory is in consonance with one of the theories in jurisprudence, and where this theory will fit place in the articles of the Indian Constitution. This is the task which the researcher has to conduct. Then only we can say that the research is complete. So now, the first part, the researcher always tries to begin with the introduction, isn't it? The first is introduction. What is introduction? What is introduction? Introduction is this, that the researcher introduces his research to the public. Always remember, the research is not done for the researcher. It is done for the public. The research is always carried on for the public. It has to have the benefit of the society has to get the benefit of the research. It is not the researcher's marks or his increment or whatever. It is for the social betterment, advancement of knowledge, betterment of the society. So he has to introduce the research. The entire research has to be introduced. Now how he will introduce? When do we introduce? How do we introduce a particular person? In the same manner we have to introduce the research. So first of all, he is going to state his title. He has to state the title of the research, that the undergoing research is so and so, the forthcoming pages deal with so and so. This particular title, he has to first name the title, then he has to give the concepts of the title. He has to make the title very clear and understandable. After the title, he comes straight to the problem, research problem. This problem, I told you, has to be in a statement form. So he has to identify the research problem. So it is like an opener to the research. The reader is going to get an understanding of the research through these two concepts, title and the problem. When we go to the library, how do we, suppose we want a particular book, say relating to a particular aspect of compensation, then which book do we open? Where is compensation a remedy? We go to the Indian Penal Code, CRPC, evidence. Where do we go? We will go by the name of the book, contract or torts. So in the law of contract, what is there? All the aspects of contract. The name itself suggests what the contents are. Like that, the name should suggest what the contents of the research are. As I said, it is an opener. Very clear, very specific. I have already discussed the problem. Very concise, very precise. After the problem, he has to immediately identify the area of research. he has to identify the area of the research, or we say the scope of research. That means whether it is doctrinal or whether it is empirical, he has to identify the scope, that is, this particular topic, this particular problem will be solved with the following aspects, with reference to the following subjects. There may be number of subjects, but constitution, jurisprudence, research methods must. Can anybody conduct research in law without the reference of these three? Impossible. Apart from this, the subjects of the research, plus those subjects which somewhere are connected with the topic, somewhere. Suppose the research is say on the juvenile delinquency. The causes, say the research is the causes of juvenile delinquency. So now what are the subjects? Constitution must. Jurisprudence must. Research methods, because he is following the research steps, so research methods must. Then causes of juvenile delinquency, criminology, penology, principles of criminal law, and apart from that, sociology, psychology, human rights. These are the connected subjects which will come here. Not the entire concept of human rights, not the entire concept of penology or sociology, but that relevant part which is related to juvenile delinquency. Have you followed? So it is only the relevant aspect wherever juvenile delinquency will touch. It's not the entire principles of criminal law, it is not the entire constitution or the jurisprudence. Only those relevant aspects, but wherever they touch. So this is the demarcation of the research, no? So just like our house, if you want to build a house, then first what do we do is demarcate, no? Or do we live like this? We will not know how much to build where. But once you have demarcated the area, then you absolutely know wherein the research has to lie down. And it is not open for criticism. So, area or the scope of research, then the nature of research. What is going to be the nature of research? Whether the research is going to be empirical or doctrinal, most of them right. But also whether the analysis technique, that is, it is analytical, it is comparative. It is also critical evaluative, or it is historical. Rarely any doctrine, these are the two types, doctrinal and non-doctrinal. Every research can be categorized into doctrinal, non-doctrinal. But in doctrine also, whether it is analytical, comparative, critical, historical, evaluative, whatever, experimental, whatever, and same is here. Generally, all research today, all researches can be analytical. Even though it is historical, we can analyze the history. So it is historical plus analytical, because we analyze the history is stated in an analysis form. So it may, or comparative or critical evaluation or whatever. So he has to identify the nature of the research. It is not sufficient just doctrinal or non-doctrinal. Other than that also there are many types of research which we have already done. Then the objectives to be identified before. Objectives of the research. 20 objectives. Is it possible for the researcher to fulfill by one single research to fulfill 20 objectives? They should be feasible, they should be reasonable, they should be rational, and they should be in furtherance of knowledge. And they should be concrete, not abstract. Advancement of legal knowledge. Every legal research is going to be in advancement of legal knowledge. So that is the basic objective, betterment of the society. It is the basic fundamental objective of every research. But what is the particular objective of this particular research has to, that means actually the question is here, problem statement. It is statement. But he conducts the research, why? In order to achieve this. I told you it is the main hook. of the research. So what is his research going to do? This is the objective which every researcher has to identify before. Very feasible, very precise. Even if it is one objective, doesn't matter, but it should be fruitful. The objective is to do away with the lacunas which are existing in a particular law. These lacunas which are existing, 1, 2, 3, whatever lacunas are existing, you have to identify and say that the research is conducted so as to do away these particular lacunas, to fill the gap or to avoid the criticism or whatever. Whatever is the objective. After the objective, then we have to identify the concepts which have been used. You have to identify the main words, the terms which we are often going to use. Like in my case, when I was going to do the research in administrative law, the liability of the state as far as torts, the word sovereign, non-sovereign, identify the word sovereign, non-sovereign and explain the meaning. So there is no gap between the researcher's intention and the reader's intention. It is focused. Both of them are compelled to think in one direction. That means it is the job of the researcher to make the reader think on his lines. So you have to identify the terms, words before. After identifying the terms, words, then we have to formulate our hypotheses in connection with the objectives, in connection with the problem. So you have to match the number of the problems, the number of the hypotheses, and you can have an alternative hypothesis. There is no bar, but then always remember, hypothesis is an indicator of tool of data collection. Data is collected according to the hypothesis. So many hypotheses will make the researcher collect so much of data which might not be fruitful. So we have to be very careful in formulating the hypothesis. State it should not be one paragraph. Very concise, very precise hypotheses should be stated. Then we have to state our research design. Research design. What would be the research design actually? But I would prefer, before research design, it is here actually, but I would prefer it over here. The other part, that is the tools of data collection. Data collection. And then actually this falls here and then this in the real order. But for our convenience, we just try to change. Tools of data collection. First, you state that your research is so and so, and that is why the secondary sources of data, and identify the secondary sources of data. We have to identify the secondary sources of data. Just saying secondary source of data is no use. Identify books, textbooks, reference books, journals, articles, precedents, legislation, statutes. If you are going to use CAD, then CAD, or debates, or bills, drafts, if they are going to be used. So you have to identify. Then, if the research is non-doctoral research, then state that the research is empirical research, it is non-doctoral research, and that is why primary sources of data are going to be used. So and so, whether it is interview or questionnaire or whatever observation, give reasons why you are going to choose interview, because it is a personal confidential information first, and secondly, the area of the research is small, so it is feasible for the researcher to conduct interviews, and he can rely because much information can be got through interviews, or questionnaire because it is large. So according to time, money, it is better to circulate the questionnaire. So state one. Apart from the primary sources of data, the researcher, it is imperative upon the researcher to conduct a doctoral research on that particular statute or concept which is going to use for non-doctoral research, and hence even the secondary tools of data are used in the present research. So we cannot say my research is both doctoral and non-doctoral. What is this? It is non-doctoral only, but to conduct a non-doctoral research, the researcher, it is must that he conducts a doctoral research first. He has to read first the statute, the reasons for the failure for the Dowry Act. You have to read no first Dowry Act. Then what is it? It is of course a doctoral research. So apart from the primary source of data of collection, the researcher is also going to use secondary. In the empirical research, mind you, both the sources are used. It is only in the doctrinal that only secondary sources are used, but then that scope is very vast. Then we have our research design. Now what is going to fall in the research design? Research design, I told you, it contains all the first 1 to 10 steps. Now we have identified so many steps already. So now again elaborate, no repetition. So in the research design, we say that the scheme of research design actually contains all the steps, but as the researcher has already elaborated the steps before, supra, the same steps, and in continuation, he has to here deal with the scheme of chapterization. He has to deal with the scheme of chapterization. He has to state the research is divided into 4 chapters. Chapter 1 is devoted to the introduction and the research methodology, which has already been stated and will be stated in further pages, plus the introduction of the topic. He has to introduce the topic. Here he has to introduce the topic in the sense he has to give the relevance and the nature and scope of the topic as well. But it can be taken as a separate point also, but just for part. Then the second chapter, generally it is devoted to the history, origin of the source. The third and the fourth chapter to the content, data collection. Whatever data has been collected through primary or secondary, then arrangement of that data. And then the fifth is interpretation and analysis, that is conclusion. This is how the scheme of chapterization. We have to give a reason or justification for every chapter. If we cannot fit a particular chapter within the scheme of either the objectives or the problem or the hypotheses, then that chapter is not required in the present scheme of chapters or the present research. Then sampling. We have to state this point and also say that since the research is doctoral research, the step of sampling is not required and hence the step is not followed in the present research. If it is empirical research, then state the research is empirical, so it is mandatory for the researcher to undertake the sampling technique, and he is going to take whatever, probable, non-probable, improbable, systematic, or lottery, or stratified, proportionate, or disproportionate, whatever. The skill over here is, it is the choice of the researcher to use any technique which is there in the following research methods. The only proviso is this, that he has to justify every step, and the justification of the step should be in consonance to the objectives. It should be in consonance to the objectives. So if the objective is to find the reason for the failure of the dowry, then the sampling will be from the urban also, from the rural also. If the research is upliftment of the women in the rural areas, then necessarily sampling is from the cities. No, the sampling is from the villages, from the underdeveloped, isn't it? Because it has to go in consonance with the objective. Upliftment of the rural women. The sampling will be from where? From the rural areas, not from the urban areas. Because sampling has to go in consonance with the objective. It is only for explanation. So he has to state why and how he is going to do the sampling. Then it is must for the researcher to state the significance or the importance and the relevance of his study. So much of exercise he is going to do. Then what is the importance? What is the significance? What is the relevance of his research in today's time. It should not happen that he is taking a research but the concept is outdated, or is undertaking a research but the concept is yet to come. It has to be within the time frame, the present time frame, and he has to show the relevance. That means this is the problem, this is the gap, this is the lacuna which has arisen, and in order to do away with this lacuna, the present research is conducted. He has to show the relevance of his research. Otherwise, if the research is not relevant in present time, will the research be fruitful? Obviously not. So he has to show that the research is significant, importance, 1 to 20 points of importance. The value can be very, very concisely and precisely stated. There is no need for you to have 20 points of importance or significance. But they should be reasonable, rational, and the significance should be that they highlight the objectives, because the significance, the utility is directly related over here. The objective of the research is directly related to the importance. How do we understand the importance or the significance or the relevance of the research? By the objectives. This is nothing new. When we teach a statute, you always teach the objects of the statute, no? So the act is formulated. It has been legislated to fulfill the following objectives. So always every statute will have a statement of objectives. Same as here. We have to have a statement of objectives or whatever. Then we are going to state over here in the, if it is possible, the time, the finance or whatever. If we are going to have that constraint, time and money. Otherwise, there is no need for us to write the time and money, but this is required for the researcher himself. After the scheme of chapterization, he has to stick to the scheme of chapterization and he has to follow all these steps in detail. Now, the only part left is collection of data, how it has to be collected, how it is to be classified, and how it is to be interpreted. Okay, so now we just see how the data is to be.
So, ma'am, in introduction chapter, we are ending with chapterization scheme or significance. What will be the last?
It is sometimes it is better to have the scheme of chapterization last and the objectives here, but it is no bar. So you can take the significance above and you can take the research design here and then end your introduction with the scheme of chapterization, that the forthcoming chapter begins from here. There is no bar. Research design's place is right at the top. But when we are writing the research, because we have already written the steps, we don't write the steps again, we introduce the scheme of chapterization. So even if you take the research design at the last and take the importance and the significance first, doesn't matter. The main point over here is that we have to introduce our topic to the best of our understanding. The topic of our research has to be everything. That means you have to have a little of the origin, the working, the problem, the anticipated solution. Everything has to be written in very concise or indirectly. It has to be written over here. Now,
and ma'am, one more doubt. Then in introduction only we have to write literature review, no?
No. Yes, but that is not there for every research. That has been added to this thing. But literature review is only to mandate that the student has read at least a few books. But that is not the requirement of research methods. Okay. It is a requirement of a particular authority. Now, the main part, collection of data and its interpretation or application. Here lies the problem or the nucleus of the research. How to collect the data and how to analyze or interpret the data. So now the tools of data collection are there with us. We have already decided whatever tools we are going to formulated. It is there in our research methods, chapter 1. So it is secondary source of data. Then first we will do secondary, then primary. If secondary sources of data are used in the research, then how to classify the data. So much of data is available at the researcher. He is in possession of so much of data, but then what is the use, what is the utility of that data? Then he first has to read the data. He himself has to read the data thoroughly. This is a sine qua non of research. He himself has to read the data. He cannot ask somebody else to read it on his behalf. You cannot just have heaps and heaps of data collected from the internet. No use. Because he has to read, he has to understand, then only he can analyze. If he doesn't read, how is he going to analyze? If he is going to read in a very haphazard manner, the conclusions will also be in haphazard manner. So he has to read. While reading, he has to make marks on the data. So this is how it will help for him to classify, because he doesn't know actually what data will be of what relevance. The first impression is just reading. So he has to read and make few notes that this data is pertaining to this particular aspect. So like that he will have all the aspects of data. Like for example, suppose we are doing research, say, on article 21. So we read the entire article 21 and we collect all the case laws, because without case laws we cannot do anything for article 21. So we collect so many 2000 cases of article 21. Now they are there. Now what is to be done? Then read the data. What is the first step? Read the data individually, personally. So take one case. Okay, we will not be able to know the case because it is the first case. So read the case entirely. Then we come to the conclusion that okay, in this particular case the Supreme Court has given compensation. Okay, so put the case over here, give it number 1 and say give the time also, whatever time, 1983, whatever date of the case, give the time and number. This is important. Pick up the second case. It will be easy for us to understand because we have already read first. Okay, this deals with what? No, this deals with saying that article 19 and 21 are not related to each other. Okay, so give it again number 1, not in relation, 1921 not in relation, give it number 1 and give the time, whatever it is, 1950. The third case, again will take less time. Then now 4th, 5th, 6th case, now the researcher will know just to read the ratio. After reading 7-8 cases, he will get the hang as to how he should read the case. First case, he has to read thoroughly. Second, also thoroughly. Then third, fourth, he will get the hang how to read the cases. From his eyes will be set, okay, this is the ratio. So he just reads the ratio and classifies. In this particular case, they say that yes, there is a relation between article 21. So like that he gets all, so many, 30, 40 cases he gets. He can easily classify. So this is the way how he is going to classify when he reads the data. Authors, suppose it is not case law. Authors, now for example my research, state liability regarding law regarding torts committed by the government. So we take one book. Now where I have to identify where the torts have been committed and it falls under which subjects. So of course administrative law, but of course constitutional law also. So I begin with administrative law. Then I take a particular book, say Jain and Jain. So what is he saying about non-sovereign, sovereign? I have to write down what his views are. So I write down the name of the author, the year. Then I take Sathe, then I take Jacob, then I take n number of authors and I write. So okay, this view is similar to Sathe's view, put it in one classification. This view is closer to Jain, put it in one. This view absolutely different, in contrast to Jain, separate paragraph or separate file from Jain, contrast to Jain, contrast to Sathe, contrast to Jacob. Then I know how many views, how many authors are having the same view, how many authors are having a different view. This is how he has to classify the data, but for that he has to read the books. It is not that you take one book and conduct the research, entire research. First we have to understand what the author is saying, and then we have to analyze what he is saying, put it in our own words, and then read another book and then make classification. So we know that really whose opinion is what. Then we have to say whether we agree or whether we disagree or whatever. But this is how the classification has to be done. This is in case of doctrinal research. For example, in non-doctrinal research, what is to be done? In the case of empirical research, we have the data which is collected by interviews or questionnaires. So with the interviews, what we have to do? We have to pick and choose every interview, write down what the interviewee has said, because the record is just what he has said, but we have to put it into our jargon, that is we have to correlate it to the objective or the problem or the hypothesis. So put it in those words, put it in those, we should have that focus while writing, so that our job becomes easy. Now some interviews we cannot understand, put them aside. So how to classify the data? Those which are directly relevant, those which we feel are irrelevant. This is the basic classification. So relevant data on one side, irrelevant data on the other side. So from every interview, irrelevant data has to be removed and only the relevant data has to be kept. Relevant means how to find out whether the data is relevant or not. The criteria is here. The criteria is objectives, problem or hypothesis. This is the criteria. This is how we classify on relevancy or non-relevancy. Now don't throw away the irrelevant data. We have to keep it. And then now one by one we take the interview and classify the relevant data. The questions which have been answered directly, very easy, put them into the appropriate classification. In favor of dowry, not in favor of dowry. This is for relevant data. Now somewhere we cannot understand what the interviewer has said. Then go back to the same interview and read the non-relevant data, because non-relevant data may be a clue to understand the relevant data.
Yes.
So sometimes when he has not answered in yes, no, then we go from the non-relevant. Non-relevant means whatever. No, but then I think that this practice should stop. But of course, depend upon. That means from this we know that that person is in favor of avoiding dowry. Sometimes it happens that way. So this is how. After this classification, we have to go further, and that is the interpretation of data. But for interpretation, we need one more classification. Any number of criteria can be applied for classification, but the best classification or the best criteria is time. The best criteria is time. But he can adopt any criteria to classify the data, whether it is doctrinal or not doctrinal. So time wise means he has to analyze all the cases on time base. So we have started with the Constitution 1950. So from there he has to arrange that in 1950 how many cases, 51 how many cases, 52 how many cases, so on so forth. Or it might be pre-independence, post-independence. So independence becomes the criteria. So what is before 1947 or 1950? After 1950, whichever criteria. But here there is no scope for the researcher to make an error. So also he automatically gets the line of origin. He automatically gets the line of development once he classifies the data time-wise. So if somebody asks you how is Article 21 developed, because we have classified 1950, 1979 and later on after 1980, then we immediately get, in 1950 it was so. There was no relationship between Article 19 and 20. However, this changed in 1978-79. They said there is a relation. Then it again changed. They said that there should be composition, and then it again changed that now all the directive principles are. So time wise we get the development of the law either in precedent or in the statute. That is why it is less, there is a less chance for the researcher to go wrong time wise. But he can employ, he can classify and he can again classify. So and again reclassify. N number of classifications the researcher can do depending upon the nature of the research and the problem of the research. So once it is time wise, then it might be event wise, then it might be area wise. So area wise also he can do, event wise also he can do. He can adopt any criteria to classify the data, but the criteria has to be based upon the objective problem and hypothesis. He cannot take any criteria because he feels like. Apart from this, the criteria has to be reasonable and objective. It has to be reasonable and it has to be objective. So the criteria should have direct nexus with the objective of the research. It has to have a direct nexus, connection to the objective of the research. So our research is, say, the reasons for the failure of the Dowry Act. What is the criteria of classifying the data? What are the hobbies? Does it have? Education, will it have? Education will have nexus. Then class will have nexus. Profession will have nexus. So we have to identify, when we are formulating a criteria, always see whether there is a nexus, proper nexus with the objective problem. And because see, once we identify, now these are the types of classification. So that for the Dowry Act, once we classify on the basis of, say, education. So those who are undergraduate, graduate and above graduation. Again put the data. After the classification you have to make notes. Then again the data on the next classification, that is the profession. Make notes, again put them together. The third classification, that is, say, upon income or the class. Now when we have more classification, we know those who are educated, we have three classes. Those who are educated, then those who have got a particular profession, and those who have got particular profession, and those who are whatever, financial structure. Now we know that when this is clubbed, what is the ratio of the dowry? So we get perfect analysis that those who are more educated and those who have got more money, perhaps they are in more favor of giving and taking dowry. Maybe, it is only maybe. More the classification, accurate the interpretation. But it is hard work to do the classification. When the data is not known, put it in a different class. Not known data. The known, first I told you relevant, irrelevant. So it is known or unknown. So that is, you put it in a different class. After analyzing, reading the relevant data, once again the research has to go to the non-relevant data just to check, because now he has understood the entire data, relevant data. So you have just to cross check whether there is some relevant aspect over here remaining, and many times it is then included into the relevant data. So the first impression while glancing at the data and the second impression glancing at the same data may be absolutely opposite, may be different. That is why he has to give enough time for data classification and arrangement. Arrangement he can do event wise, or he can, if it is case law, he can do judge wise, he can do court wise, he can do time wise, he can do subject wise, he can do content wise. So many types of classification can be done with the appropriate criteria which are relevant to the objective and which are reasonable. The criteria has to be reasonable and it has to be objective. It cannot be a biased criteria. It cannot be a biased criteria. We like the style of speaking of a particular interview or a particular writing we like. That is biased criteria. It has to be relevant, it has to be objective. After this, he has to interpret the data. Interpretation of data means how will he interpret now? This is the data. So here there are 30 cases, here there are 40 cases, here there is only one case. The other, there are some, whatever it is, there are some 150 cases. Now this is the interpretation that the Supreme Court, where they say that there is no relationship, there is only one case. And this case was later on overruled. Okay, so only one case. Compensation, number of compensation cases are there. So yes, whatever is the number, 40, 50, whatever it is. And there is a relationship between Article 1920, there are 30 cases. Article directive principles included 150. This is the interpretation of the data. So, like in a non-doctrinal, those questionnaire it is easy to analyze because we have the whatever the response is there, it is very precise, even though it is open-ended, only 2 lines. So in favor, not in favor, irrelevant. Incomplete questionnaires keep aside. Complete questionnaires keep aside. Then try to analyze that the questionnaires which are completed, which are from which area, and the incomplete questionnaires are from which area, whose number is more, and then the number, if it is more for incomplete questionnaires or not got, again circulate the questionnaires in that particular area. And then classify, yes, no, don't know, degree wise sometimes, very, very strong opinion, moderate, less strong, like that. Classification of the questionnaires. Observation, interpretation and classification is extremely difficult because he has to read the entire observation, come to know from one observation what is relevant, what is irrelevant, what is connected to the objective, what is not connected. It takes a lot of time for observation, but still it can be done. Now coming back to the interpretation, this is the interpretation. Question is, those who have said yes in favor of dowry, how many? 40, 50. Those don't know, 30. This is the interpretation. Then make analysis that the educated people, this is the percentage of taking and giving dowry. The non-educated people, this is the percentage. In non-educated also, those who are from the cities, those who are from the village area, this is the percentage. Whatever is the percentage. This is the interpretation. For doctoral research, we have to see those authors which have a particular view, or the Supreme Court has relied on this particular decision most of the times. Then we say that the Supreme Court is in favor of giving such type of decisions. Then you give your analysis whether that is right or wrong, depending upon the support of the various authors. But this is how we have to analyze. Interpretation, then analysis. We have to say that because the percentage over here is high, the Supreme Court is now in favor of so and so. Now you state your reasons on the basis of the other scholars that whether this particular action of the Supreme Court is justifiable or not, with supportive. It should not that I don't like. No value loaded terms to be used in the research, like, dislike, good, bad. They have to be reasonable and you have to support your views on the basis of some theory. We cannot just have opinions in the air. This is the interpretation and the analysis part. The analysis part is that just the interpretation is easy, but what about the analysis? We have to analyze each and every content of our data. Say those who have not answered, these people are reluctant in answering. That means perhaps they are interested in taking dowry, but they don't want to say it. This is the analysis. So here the analysis, for the analysis, the researcher has to use his skill, his understanding, his expertise, his knowledge, his experience and the data. He has to analyze data. But one caution, Every time whatever the researcher feels may not be true. Sometimes what we perceive and what the actual reality is, there may be a gap. So he has to see and perceive on the basis of the data which is available to him. There should not be any gap between his perception or conception and whatever the data has been collected. This is a big clause, it is a big hunch, because every time if it, oh, he is doing like that, so it must be like this. So whatever we feel, it is our subjective opinion. And we have to state our subjective opinion on the objective data. Like the hypothesis, it might be a hunch, it might be an idea. So it is what? It is subjective, and that subjective thing has to be tested upon the objective data. The subjective opinion has to be tested upon the objective data. I told you the whole research is conducted in order to prove or disprove the hypothesis, and it is proved or disproved on the basis of the data collection and the interpretation and the analysis of the data. If codes are used, then the codes will remain till the classification and interpretation, and in the analysis the entire thing has to be decoded. So what is the method of codification and what is the method of decodification? This has to be used. Now when we write numbers, it is not codification. So instead of the case laws we use, or the names, we use the codes, whatever code which we are going to formulate. After the analysis, the researcher has to write his conclusion. Conclusion means everything has to be included in the conclusion. This doesn't mean that he has to write the entire research. No, it is not like that. So this is the introduction, this is the content, and this is the conclusion. So 3 parts of the research. In the introduction, the researcher opens up the questions, what he is going to address to himself. So he opens up the aspects, concepts, questions. In the content, he tries to solve all the contents, the problems, the aspects he solves. And in the conclusion, he has to write what is the effect of that particular content or that particular solution, or how he has solved the problem, what is the relevance of that problem. So he closes the content with the concluding remarks. So in the introduction, he has to say what he is going to do. In the it is said, many times it is said that in the introduction, the researcher is going to state what he is going to do. In the content, he does what he wants to do. And in the conclusion, he states what he has done. So all the questions which have been opened up, he ties them over here. He ties all the knots over here. So how the knots are tied? We have the entire research, we have all these chapters. So we have to have the introduction, some part, the concluding notes of the first, what has he done in the first chapter, the second chapter, the concluding remark. Not that he should not reproduce the entire chapter, but the origin will point out to what? What is the origin pointing out to? Like in the case of my, because I have to give some example, I am giving the example of my research. The origin of sovereign, non-sovereign was 1860. So 1860, how will I conclude? That was there in this chapter, the charter of 1861, and the year 1861 the case arose, and then the charter came 1861. Then what is the utility for me to examine that charter? I will write in the conclusion that by reading this particular 1861 charter, the researcher has found out that for the first time the concept of sovereignty was brought to the Indian soil. What is the charter is mentioned over here. But what is the significance of studying the charter in my research? The significance is in the conclusion. Over here I am not going to write the charter. It makes no sense. Here also, then this only becomes a thesis, conclusion becomes a thesis. I have to write the significance, why I have included this charter over here, and what is the gain that I have got through studying that particular charter. Is that possible? This is how for every chapter the researcher has to give a reason as to what he has included and why, and what is the effect. Effect in terms of objectives. Having effect in terms of objective, that is, he has to understand each and every chapter, and then what is the concluding note, what is the relevance of that particular thing, how that particular aspect has helped him to come to a particular conclusion. And he has to conclude the analysis with the concluding remarks. Plus, that is not all, there are two aspects. Plus, he has to give suggestions. He starts with the problem. The researcher opens the research with the problem. He has to end with the solution. It is obvious. Can you just identify the problem? Identification of the problem is one part. But for the research to be complete, it has to have a solution. This is one aspect. The other aspect is that if the research is doctored, then he has to say that the conclusion, that is the concluding remarks, that is the solution, it is theory. In which situations his theory will apply. He has to state in which situation this theory will be useful, will be applied. If the research is doctoral research, then whatever solution he has come to the problem, that solution is going to be applied in theoretical form. In which situations? So he has to give a practical application of this particular solution in cases of doctoral research. And in empirical research, when he has got data, this data, whatever is the data which he has analyzed and he has concluded, that data is correlated or based upon which theory. So he has to give a theoretical application of the practical situation of his data collection in empirical research. Then only we can say that the research is complete. Like I said, there cannot be any practical application without a theory. And every theory has to have a practical application. In case a theory does not have a practical application, that theory is redundant. It is of no use. Nobody is going to study it. Then we can say that the research is complete. The last aspect is report writing. In the cases of report writing, what we have to do is, the researcher has to begin from the choosing of the subject and the area. That means he has to state, I, you words not to be used. Always third person. In any research, objectivity, third person. No value loaded terms to be used in the research writing. Any of the research writing, always. So, the present researcher, while choosing the particular subject, faced these difficulties. Or it was very easy because the subject was of his choice. He used to always think that he can do something in this subject, and so he chose the subject and the following topic for the research. Whether it was easy or whether it was difficult, the first step, he has to write that. The second step, all the 10 steps of the research, how he has conducted, whether it was easy, whether it was difficult, what are the problems which he faced, and how the other researcher can overcome those problems. Many a times we do a particular action and we say, no, but if I would have done this, it would be more better. That has to be written in report writing. I did this, the present researcher did this. Because of doing this, he had to face so many problems. But it is recommended for the other researcher to do the following, the same aspect in this manner, because so many aspects will be eliminated. Why is the report writing done? The report writing is done, the main objective of report writing is done to give a guidance, give a direction for another researcher for further research. So the report writing is done to help him. It is going to act as an aid to the other researchers. So before conducting a research on this topic, we have to see whether research has been conducted. Take that, it gives us a hint to the problem, to the hypothesis, to the data collection, sampling, everything we get a hint. So if we get a pre-idea, then we can do the things more better. So then our research also has to give a pre-idea to the other research, because research is a continuous process. Can we say, now bus, now the research is over, now it is a continuous process. So we have to give an idea to the other researchers. So in the research writing, we have to mention all the 10 steps and how we have done it, whether it was right or whether it was wrong. If it was wrong, how it was rectified, because we cannot have a wrong research. So it was rectified. Then to avoid this wrong step, what is to be done by the other researchers. So whether he was able, whether his tools of data collection were correct, whether there was a sampling error, whether the sample was really optimum, whether his strategy or stratified sampling was correct or it was more complex, whether he failed to understand the nature of the population, interpretation, classification, he has classified how many times, in that how much of his time was spent. All these aspects a person has to write in a report writing. He gives the actual report of how he has conducted a research. That is report writing.